Hello and welcome to Film School Snobs. I'm Alex,
And I'm Jalen.
and welcome back. On this episode, we're going to be making our own summer blockbusters, seeing as how the movies are closed for the first couple months of the summer season. And even when they do open up, who knows? Maybe we don't feel safe enough to go yet. Maybe you live in Florida, where you shouldn't be leaving your house at all. Um,
You shouldn't even
Jalen,
be in period. That's
what do
the
you say?
first. But you shouldn't even be in Florida, period. But that's a whole nother
Yes, if you're in Florida, leave now. Just like leave it
thing.
to rot.
The Gator Man's gonna get you run.
Jalen, how have you been?
I've been good, all things considered. Another week in quarantine, but my city's starting to reopen everything, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, same here. Another week in quarantine. I've been chilling, playing some video games. Finally got my hands on The Last of Us Part 2. And, doing some reading, watching some movies. So let's go into some news real quick. Well, first of all, there's a rumor going around that Dave Filoni is going to take over the live action segment, the live action shows for Star Wars on Disney Plus. He was involved with The Mandalorian. He produced it, and he was like the main writer on the Clone Wars show and the Rebels show for years now. And I've heard really great things about the latest season of Clone Wars. I haven't fully caught up on Clone Wars yet. I've only seen the first couple seasons, so I didn't watch the newest season. Jalen, have you ever watched the Clone Wars shows or the Rebels show?
Yeah, well, back in like 2008, when I was younger, I used to watch Clone Wars on Cartoon Network, but yeah, I gave up on it a long while ago. Star Wars Rebels, I actually did try watching like the first season of it, like back when Last Jedi came out, I think. And I actually liked it for the most part. I thought it was cool for a kids show. But I haven't finished it at all, even though people rave about it. Between that and Clone Wars, it just wasn't something I was interested in. Um, for me, I'm the Star Wars fans where it's just like, just give me the movies and then I'm good with that. I don't need the extended lore or anything like that that connects into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always been the same way. Like I remember, I have like so many people who just like are like, Alex, you got to read the lore. You got to read the lore. You're not a real Star Wars fan if you don't read the lore. I'm like, dude, do you not know how many books there are? Like, I don't want to read all that.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and so I've always just like stuck to the movies, even when it comes to, like the TV shows. I've seen, like I said, I've seen the first couple seasons of the Clone Wars, and from what I saw, it was pretty good. But nothing that like really kept my interest for too long.
Hmm.
The Mandalorian show I thought was pretty solid. It's not as great as like some people say it is, but for what it is, it's an entertaining show with like a nice aesthetic and like, I like the Western tone to it. But yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what he does with the live action Star Wars shows. I'm wondering what we get beyond the Mandalorian.
Yeah, because well, for me, I'm at a point where I'm just kind of, and we talked about this last week, but I'm just kind of over Star Wars. It's something where it's just like, yeah, I have fond memories of it. I still like majority of the movies. It's just I'm not as big of a fan as I was. So to the point where I didn't even finish The Mandalorian. I think I watched like the first 4 episodes, and I just didn't like the whole with the show. It's like adventure of the month type of thing, where it's just like each episode is its own contained story. It's like, I'm not really feeling that too much, but I'm happy that people love it. And from what I know, Dave Filoni, he seems to be he has his head right with Star Wars, so I'm sure the
Hmm.
fans will be happy.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I remember everybody complaining about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, but Mandalorian was great and Clone Wars was great. So, I mean, he obviously knows how to connect with like the modern Star Wars fans. So I'm sure he'll put out stuff that appeals to them. And like I'll definitely be entertained by some of it. Like I said, I found the Mandalorian pretty entertaining, and I'm hoping they expand like new and interesting territory with these live action shows. Um, so yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty solid move. You got someone with experience in the universe, who will most
Hmm.
likely do great things.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
With other news, there's rumors that Michael Keaton will come back as Batman in Andy Muschietti's The Flash movie. This is a movie where, for the longest time, the biggest rumor was they were going to do Flashpoint, and I believe there were even rumors of like Batman Beyond and stuff showing up. Jalen, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, at first I was kind of just confused. I was like, I'm not interested in seeing Michael Keaton as Batman again. But yeah, after you told me like what they plan on doing with the Flashpoint and Batman Beyond, it's like, oh, okay. Well, in that case, bring it on. I'd love to see a Logan style thing with that. I know that's the whole meme is that everybody says like, oh, it's got to be like Logan, an old deprived desperate man taking desperate measures. But I mean, it's in the Batman lore, and from what I heard, that whole series is pretty great. So
Mm.
I'm interested to seeing what they could do with this. And without a doubt, Michael Keaton is one of the best actors working today. So I have no doubt it'll be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. It'd be interesting to see them bring back Michael Keaton. I know the one thing that they're definitely trying to do with the Flash film, especially with it being Flashpoint, is try to like, kind of do a reboot of or at least a soft reboot of the DC universe, considering how Batman v Superman and Justice League didn't go over all that well with with general audiences. And so probably I remember Movie Bob. He's a critic who I follow. He did like a pitch of like how to do a Flashpoint film, and he had it where like Batman Beyond, or not Batman Beyond because that's like the next Batman, but like Michael Keaton is like old man Bruce, and he would tell Flash like, oh, he needs to go back in time and fix this, go back in time and fix that, and then like Flashpoint is like more about like the alternate timelines in DC universe, like that's how they're gonna reboot everything if they do Flashpoint,
Right.
and I think it could be something interesting. It could have the danger of being like really bloated, and instead of like being a film focused on its own story, it's just focused on like fixing everything in the universe, kind of like something like Age of Ultron or Iron Man 2, where it's not focused on its own story, it's rather just focused on setting up all these alternate movies. But it could be something interesting, so who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I'm at the point where it's just like I would rather see Michael Keaton holding his talents for more stuff like Birdman or The Founder. But listen, man, Michael Keaton Batman, and I don't know why this is such a controversial opinion, but honestly, I think Michael Keaton is the best Batman in my opinion. But whenever I say that, a bunch of people are ready to start fighting me. So
I mean, I don't know. I've always liked his acting as Batman. I'm not the biggest fan of the way they wrote the character, but like, it's the same thing with Ben Affleck, where like I feel like Ben Affleck was a great Batman. I just don't like the way they wrote his character. I'd say like the Tim Burton Batman movies are bad. They're actually like really great. They're just not my pitch perfect representation of Batman, but for what they were at the time, they were absolutely amazing.
yeah, no, for sure, I get that.
And speaking of Batman, today the filmmaker Joel Schumacher, who's mostly known for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, has passed away. He's created some other stuff. I think he made the Lost Boys movie, like the one about the vampires. And yeah, so Jalen, what are your thoughts on Joel Schumacher as a filmmaker and about this news?
Yeah, well, first condolences to all his friends and family. It's sad, but I mean, listen, he died at the age of 80. That's life achieved right there. So bravo to him and bravo for his plethora of works that he put out. Flatliners was another one that he did. The original, not the crappy remake of that. Yeah, I mean, he was a household name for a director. Really made a name for himself. Even with the works that weren't that well received, like Batman and Robin, it's become cult classics at this point. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows Joel Schumacher. But yeah, like I said, condolences to his friends and family.
Yeah, even so like thinking about Batman Forever and Batman Robin, like at the time these were like the worst things to come out ever. And nowadays, like you're seeing kind of like a resurgence of people saying, well, it really wasn't that bad. I think like the biggest like attacking point for that movie was that they made Batman too gay with like the bat nipples and the close-up shots of like his crotch and his butt, which is like kind of a homophobic attack on Joe Schumacher. But like nowadays, where like we've kind of become more, what's the word I'm looking for? More open to stuff like that. Like it becomes like we appreciate some of the stuff in those movies because like yeah, they're wacky, but like in a fun way, not in the bad way that like people say it is.
Yeah, listen, there's a difference between like fun bad and just boring bad.
Yeah.
Cats is boring bad. Batman and Robin, it's like, oh, it's so bad, you gotta have fun with it.
But I feel like that's also like kind of the intention with like he was trying to make Batman a bit sillier, which like yeah, of course people rejected at the time because how dare Batman be silly? A man dressed in spandex and who dresses up like a bat. How dare he be silly? But like that was his intention, and for what he was intending, he did a pretty solid job. You heard it here first, guys. I don't think Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are the worst movies ever made. They're all right.
Well, listen, I'll let you die on that train alone, but I will say, yeah, it's not as bad as people are making them out to be. You gotta have fun with them.
Exactly. I could always quote those movies. Or kill the dinosaurs. The Ice Age. All right, everybody. Chill. That's my terrible Arnold impersonation.
See, you do stuff like that. It makes it seem like you're a fan of the movies, not that you just don't think they're bad. You sound like a fanboy now.
I mean, I'm sorry. What can I say? Like, they're fun movies to quote, you know? Like, they really don't deserve the reputation that they get because they're fun. They're silly. That's the point. You know, not perfect movies. I'm not going to say, like, they're the next Dark Knight or whatever. But he did what he achieved to do, and everybody just kind of rejected it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that, but I mean, the fact that how old is that movie at this point, and everybody's still talking about it. I mean, as an artist and a creative, that's what you really strive for, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and getting paid,
Exactly.
of course.
And getting paid. And even outside of Batman Forever and Batman Robin, he's made some pretty solid movies, you know?
Hmm.
Flatliners, you mentioned, was like kind of a cult classic. There's the movie Phone Booth, which a lot of people like. There was another one of, what's it called again? Falling Down, which I've heard really great things about. What I still haven't seen it, but I've heard great things about it. So he's
Yeah,
like people like you know hate on him, but like he's had a pretty solid reputation, you know.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And listen, even at this point, he'll still live longer in the film industry, you know.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And so moving on from there, let's get into our main topic for the week. Like I said, so the summer season in terms of films are kind of slow. The closest thing we got to a summer blockbuster was *The Five Bloods* on Netflix. Um, so I figured, well, Jalen and I figured, hey, let's make our own summer blockbuster season. So we picked 5 movies that you can watch at home, whether you own them on Blu-ray or you can find them on Netflix or something. We each picked 5 movies, filling out certain categories in order to like fulfill that summer's movie season that we're all kind of missing right now. So, I, so we picked different tiers or different like kind of groups to like put them in. One was lighthearted comedy, horror film, espionage spy film, franchise film, and just straight up action flick. Um, and so let's start off with the lighthearted comedy. Jalen, what was your pick for a lighthearted comedy?
Yeah, so for my summer season lighthearted comedy, I chose The Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black, starring Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. I don't know if I talked about it on the show before, but I honestly really, really, really love this film. I think it came out back in 2016. Yeah, it did, because I actually have a funny story about it. So I saw the promo for it when it first came out, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this looks cool. Shane Black is dope and everything." But it said that it came out like right after Captain America: Civil War. So obviously, me being a Marvel fan, I saw Captain America: Civil War probably like twice in theaters, and I was
Mm.
making time to go see The Nice Guys. But of course, my friends, they're like, "No, man, let's go see Civil War. What is this Nice Guys crap?" I was like, "Oh, it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty funny. It's Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe. Now we're seeing Civil War." And so I saw Civil War the third and fourth time instead of seeing The Nice Guys once. And it was unfortunate because it seems like a lot of people did that at the time because the movie kind of flopped at the box office. But eventually, I saw it at home on HBO, and honestly, I was just engaged beginning to end. Uh, it's hilarious. It's a buddy cop film. Ryan Gosling, he plays the private detective. Russell Crowe is a guy you hire for money to beat up people. And without going too into the specifics of the story, they kind of work together to unravel this porn conspiracy. Um, and I know that kind of sounded out of left field, but it's a movie that takes place in the 1970s. Um, and yeah, I mean, listen, if you like Shane Black's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that starred Robert Downey Jr. and had to Guy Perry. No,
Val Kilmer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're gonna love this one if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, like I said, one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, go check it out.
Jalen, all I have to say is that Martin Scorsese would be ashamed of you.
Wah, wah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, Nice Guys is like a fantastic film. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see it in theaters either. Mainly because I didn't have a job at the time. I couldn't buy my own tickets. Um, but yeah, like when I did finally see it, I fell in love with the movie. I thought it was fantastic. the acting, the comedy, the action. It's all just like really well directed, and it's a shame that it bombed because I would have loved to see a sequel of this.
For sure.
For my pick for lighthearted comedy, I went to something that's like kind of personal for me. Just because like me and my friends like always like reference this movie. We even nicknamed one of our friends after one of the characters in this, and that's Super Bad. Um, it's the high school comedy that like everybody relates to the most. It's a film about growing up. It's a film about like being scared of like having to let go of your friends and moving away from them. And it's about having your final hoorah in high school right before you graduate. Um, I nicknamed one of my friends McLovin. Me and my other friend, and we kept making jokes about that for like all of my senior year, um, because he acted like McLovin a lot. But you know what? He was a great guy.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just Seth Rogen's comedy has like always appealed to me ever since I was a kid. Yes, I've been watching Seth Rogen's movies since I was a kid. I had cool parents. But yeah, I've always like his sense of humor has always appealed to me. The stoner humor with like these like really lucid, just like vulgar curse words and all that. It's the type of humor I've always like. It's the type of humor I have. So definitely appeals to me 100%. Michael Cera and Jonah Hill are great in this film. Overall, it's just like really well written comedy that I could put on anytime and just laugh at.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I was around, how old was I? I think 9 years old when I first saw that film. Yeah, just like you, my dad, he actually put the movie on. He bought the DVD and made me watch it with him. And
Mhm.
I remember watching. I was like, "Oh, this is what high school's like. I'm gonna be drawing penises on lunchboxes. Cool." But yeah, I mean, it's a movie that really stands the test of time because you can see today. I was actually just watching that film, The Good Boys, the other day, and you can see the influence. I mean, it is also another Seth Rogen produced comedy, but you could definitely see the influence of Superbad in that. Same thing with Booksmart and all those type of teen comedy tropes. Superbad was the piece that started that all.
Exactly. It's not even like revolutionary filmmaking per se. It's just a really good laugh, but it's like it's a film that's able to connect to so many people who were in high school or who were in high school at that time, and just
Mm,
had like that really awkward teenage humor.
yeah, for sure, no doubt.
So for our next category, we went with horror films. There's always films come out sometime around the summertime that just like scares everybody. Jalen, what have you picked for a horror film?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that I'm not a big fan of the horror genre. I know you are like a huge fan of it, but like me, I like watching horror films, but not that many have really impressed me or kept me interested. Except for a movie that we went to go see last October or November, whenever it was, and that was The Lighthouse, directed by Robert Eggers, starring excuse me, starring William Defoe and I'm forgetting everybody's name now. Patterson dude,
Robert Pattinson?
Robert Patterson. Thank you. Disrespectful. I'm sorry, but yeah, we went to go see that, and it was a movie I was just mesmerized by. It. I'll be honest with you, the themes of it, I wouldn't be able to begin to explain it to you. I tried talking about the movie to some people online, and they started bringing up Greek philosophy and all this stuff that I had no idea anything about. I need to do more research on it.
I always thought it
So
was just about two dudes who want a bone really bad.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like, listen, it's a very uncomfortable movie with hidden sexual tension throughout, and I'm not gonna lie, Alex. When we sat next to each other watching that film, I felt very, very, very uncomfortable. I was like,
Yes, very uncomfortable.
I hope this isn't us one day. Like, I'm a straight male, and listen, I don't have anything against that, but uh, I can't see myself trapped in a lighthouse with you that way.
Listen,
Especially if
I'm just saying, when that second wave comes, maybe we'll be stuck in a lighthouse, getting
uh,
drunk,
I try
fighting a
my,
little.
I'll find a mermaid beforehand. But yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily like a horror film per se in the way where it's like, the typical jump scare or it's actually something very scary. It's more a psychological thriller. But it was a movie that after we saw it, it stuck with me for like days. Where it's like, yeah, this really actually is really unsettling and it creeps me out. The visuals, just even like the aspect ratio of it, it's shot very well. Um, the sound design of it, not to spoil anything, but there's a particular sound that creeps up throughout the film that I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I actually had like cold sweats thinking about that. Like, Jesus, that's really, really haunting. But it's yeah, and the performances, without a doubt. Did I don't think William Dafoe, did he get nominated for best supporting for that?
I don't think he got any nominations now that I think about it.
That's really insane to me because the two of them were just really electric on screen. I mean, why'd you spill your beans? Like honestly, that movie it really is amazing. I had bought it on Apple TV too a couple months back, and I tried to show it to my friends and family, but nobody was trying to partake in it. But listen, I mean, if you're a fan of good filmography, then check this one out. It's honestly, it's a great film.
What? What? Come on, Jalen, play along. What?
I honestly, I don't like quoting films like that. The one time I actually just did it, I felt ashamed of myself. I'm not gonna lie.
Neptune strike you down, Winslow. Oh,
I think the quotes to you, Alex.
oh God. Yeah, Lighthouse is like a fantastic film. It's honestly, I think it's a masterpiece. Just visually speaking, and in terms of like the acting, it's just all around incredible. Um, yeah, it's very uncomfortable to watch with one of your male friends, so I advise watching it alone. Um, my pick for a horror film, something you can watch with the family without feeling uncomfortable. Um, that's Us, directed by Jordan Peele. It's such a fantastic film. Just like the imagery that like it instills in your head, it sticks around with you with the red jumpsuits and the golden scissors. Just all around, it's like fantastically directed, and it has really great commentary on like the class structure in America, and how performative a lot of like these like big charity events can be without like actually doing much for lower income people. Um, Another reason I picked this one too is because like it's also like a fairly mainstream film that like a lot of people can get behind. That's been Jordan Peele's mo like ever since he made Get Out. Like he's always been like a very mainstream director that like people just like immediately latch onto. Kind of like Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino, where you put his name on a film and it's gonna suck, you know. Especially considering how low budget his films are and how much they make compared to that budget. Yeah, he literally prints money for Hollywood. Um, so yeah, Us is like a fantastic and horrifying film. Like every time I watch it, like I discover more about it and I get even more and more scared.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that was. I don't know if it made like my top 10 last year, but it was definitely like right up there. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of horror, but now Jordan Peele is 2 for 2. So anything he puts his name on, I'm there at the theater day one. And even stuff that he produced, like I know Nia DaCosta, she's doing the Candyman movie that he's producing, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in seeing how that turns out. Just because, well, of Nia DaCosta, but also because Jordan Peele's name's attached to it. So
Yeah, and he's even producing we talked about this show a couple episodes back. The HBO show Lovecraft Country. He's producing that. He produced Black Klansman. He even produced a show on Amazon about like hunting down Nazis, which I didn't hear was all that great, but that's Al Pacino, so it can't be that bad.
I watched the first couple episodes, and it's kind of rough to get into, but it picks up eventually.
Awesome. And so from there, we went after horror films. We decided to, like we'll discuss espionage films because like everybody wants to have that big epic globe-trotting spy film. Um, and so, Jalen, what was your pick?
Yeah, so I mean, look, Tenet is supposed to come out in a few weeks, but if you're like me and you're still nervous as hell as to going to an actual movie theater to see it, just stay home and watch another Christopher Nolan movie, which is Inception. If you guys follow me on Letterboxd, you'll see like the first thing my favorite film of all time is actually Inception. It's actually the movie that inspired me to like really take filmmaking seriously and actually want to make these type of big action blockbusters that actually are pretty insightful and really good. Um, you have an ensemble cast led by Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, listen, I don't even have to explain what Inception is. Everybody knows what it is. Uh, the reason I chose it for an espionage category is, like I said, it has that big blockbuster appeal to it. It's a heist film, except rather than stealing something, you're implanting something somewhere. You still have to break into it for some of your team. Everybody plays their roles. And what you were speaking on, the globetrotting aspect of it, that's kind of like my favorite aspect of this film is I remember going to the theater to see it back in 2010 and just being amazed at what's on screen. It's like, oh, wow, there's that cool car chase in New York. This hotel sequence where everything's flipping is amazing. You have this whole James Bond-esque sequence in the snow. It's like everything just levels on top of each other. But most importantly, the storyline, it's really, really intriguing. It keeps you engaged from beginning to end. Um, I don't think it's a hard film to follow per se. I know a lot of people had that complaint with it, specifically with Ellen Page's character. They said she's really there just for exposition. It's like, yeah, it's a new world. Obviously, you have a lot of rules you're gonna have to explain. So I didn't really get that complaint about it, but overall, man, and the banter between the characters, between DiCaprio and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy, it's honestly, yeah, it's one of my favorite films. Oh, not one of my, it is my favorite film of all time, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. So, yeah, go watch Inception.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can say about Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker, especially like when it comes to films like Inception, which is yeah probably his best one, either that one or The Dark Knight. But like the one thing about Inception is like about how it just like mashes together so many different genres. It's like a sci-fi film, but it's also a heist film. But it's like elements of like the espionage James Bond film. Like when you first told me you're gonna put Inception, I was thinking, is that really an espionage film? Then like the more you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, it kind of has those elements, just mixed in with a bunch of other elements.
Right.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan's just like a master of like those big epic blockbusters where like everything's practical effects and you know it just goes off the walls crazy in like such an interesting way.
Yeah, and I mean that was like the biggest reason why I wanted to see Tenet is because I mean the whole plot for it seems intriguing, it seems new, but just seeing those set pieces in those trailers is like, holy crap, you got to see this on the big screen.
Yeah, and
Just not,
apparently like they crashed an actual plane, which is like the second time no one's done this.
listen, man. But is that only the second time? He didn't do any for Dunkirk or anything like that?
Maybe he might have done it for Dunkirk. I mean, Tom Hardy does crash a plane at the end of Dunkirk, so maybe. So yeah, maybe the third time.
Well, listen, if Christopher Nolan wanted to blow up my house for a sequence, I'd like sign the papers and everything, you know. So
All right, hey, you'll probably get a couple million off of that.
yeah, right. Shoot, if any director, big or small time, want to come do some practical effects on my house, just hit me up. I'll take the cash.
Yes, actually, hit me up too because I could use the cash too.
Why not?
Um, so for the espionage film, I went something very practical too, very like big on in camera stunts and practical effects. I went with Mission Impossible Fallout, which only came out 2 years ago, and ever since I've seen it, it kind of blew my mind at like how crazy Tom Cruise is as a person. Because man, this man is crazy. Um, he's over here jumping out of planes, running through Paris, going on like these big motorcycle chases with like no safety preparements at all. All because like he's an adrenaline junkie. Like he does all this just like fill his own ego, but it works because like he's also like really dedicated to like making quality films. And Mission Impossible Fallout, just like aside from the action, is just a really great film. It's like a film that puts Ethan Hunt's morals like on the front line. It's about, well, should I do the job first or should I save people first? Should I do this the right way? Should I save my friends? And it's an all around, like it's the best film in the Mission Impossible series. And I kind of struggle to say that because I found that like ever since Mission Impossible 3, each film gets like progressively better. So by the time we get Mission Impossible 7, 8, well, I'll be like, oh well, who cares about Fallout? Because these movies are like 10 times better. So yeah, just an all around fantastic film. Henry Cavill was like the standout to me. I didn't expect him to be as good as he was in that film, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, no, yeah, everything you said, I echo that 110%. Specifically with Henry Cavill, that mustache was worth it because honestly, if he didn't have it, I don't think I would look at him the same way in that film. I think the mustache sold that character. But
Yeah, that the mustache sold him, and like the way he just like reloads his arms like before he goes back into a fight.
remember the trailer, like when he actually did that, they actually added in the sound effect for it. I was like, oh shit.
And it works. It's like, man, I'm scared of this dude.
This dude is brawling. I mean,
It's,
that's
it's fun.
super.
I think Henry Cavill's character in Mission Impossible Fallout, he could definitely defeat like The Witcher, and Superman in a fight without a doubt.
Yeah, no, you know why? Because he's also charming too. That's how he'll get you first, and then he'll just beat the crap out of you.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, Mission Impossible Fallout. Yeah, that was honestly that's my favorite Mission Impossible. And to your point, what you were saying about every Mission Impossible getting progressively better, I 100% agree with that because the first Mission Impossible I didn't really care for that much. I know a lot of people love it who are old fans of the show. Mission Impossible 2, I just straight up did not like. That's when I found out that John Woo is not my cup of tea. But yeah, ever since 3 and then Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, they've all just gotten better. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with the 7 and 8 thing.
Because I thought the last one they hit like such a high wall, and then like Mission Impossible Fallout just like it exceeds it by so much, and it's like, okay, what do you have next? Is Tom Cruise going to space? Oh wait, he's doing another movie.
Yeah, I don't know. All I say is that Scientology, I mean, they have a history of protecting rapists, apparently, as we've seen this recently. But it pushes people like Tom Cruise to do crazy stuff for entertainment. So, nah, they're still bad.
Yeah, don't be a Scientologist, but if it encourages you to make the next Mission Impossible Fallout, then like sure, go for it. Just don't be a rapist.
Yeah, right. And you heard that from snaps.
So up next is franchise film, because like during the summertime, especially lately, summer blockbusters are filled with like franchises upon franchises. You've seen like Marvel absolutely take over the summer movie season. They'll release like 2 or 3 movies during the summer movie season. Like everybody flocks to it. But there are also like a plethora of other franchises that come out during the summertime that always get a lot of love. I mean, some more than others. So Jalen, what franchise film do you want to watch during the summertime?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm a big Marvel MCU guy. See, I really love those films, but I also do miss the times where, before Iron Man came out, the summer season used to start off with non-MCU movies, obviously because they haven't existed. And those are times where like X2 would start off the summer movie season. But for me, I would choose to watch Days of Future Past, X-Men Days of Future Past. That's outside of Logan. I'm going to keep that separate from how I feel about the X-Men franchise as a whole. Days of Future Past is honestly my favorite one. But it's got pretty much everything you would want. Because it came off the good strength of X-Men First Class. Everybody, when that came out, they had a great reception to it. Everybody seemed to really love that cast of characters. And what Days of Future Past did I thought was really groundbreaking, was that it adapted the storyline where we send, well, in the comics, who did they send back? Was it Rogue or
Kitty? It was Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, Kitty, she got sent back. Well, in the movie, obviously, everybody knows Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. So we sent him back in time to the 1970s to stop this mutant apocalypse that happened. Sorry, that's actually another movie, but I don't want to talk about that. And yeah, that's where we have our new X-Men meet up with our old school X-Men, and essentially just got a really, really, really good. It works out in a couple of ways. It's like a fun kind of conspiracy film type of thing, where we have our characters trying to chase down something that's about to happen, but they don't have all the answers to it just yet. You got a great action film. There's a lot of great set pieces in there. A lot of funny set pieces in there too, particularly with Peter Evans, is that his name, who plays Quicksilver?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and like I said, you have just a perfect storyline for these heroes, and something that evolves just past, even though it's in this film, it's not the typical, oh, Charles, us mutants need to stick together, and that whole conflict that always happens, which I always do appreciate, because I do like how there's kind of like an allegory for Dr. King and Malcolm X, how they had opposing views but fought for the same fight. But after a while, it gets kind of old. In this film, I think they do something very fresh with that. But yeah, Days of Future Past, I think that's, if you're going to watch any franchise film that's not, Avengers Endgame or anything, check that one out.
Yeah, Days of Future Past is a really great film. I'm not the biggest fan of the X-Men franchise. They're movies I loved growing up as a kid, but especially those first 3 movies. I wasn't I growing up watching them, I love them, but when I finally like grew up, I realized that they weren't really all that great. But like the First Class films and Days of Future Past was really great. The Deadpool movies are kind of fun. They're not my particular cup of tea, and Logan is fantastic. Then of course Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix just washed away all the goodwill. Um, but Days of Future Past, like it hits a lot of really great emotional moments. It's just a lot of fun to watch. There's some really great action scenes, and yeah, it's like just really well directed and really fun film.
Hmm. And if you want to know our thoughts on that God awful Dark Phoenix film, you could watch one of our older episodes that we did last year
Oh
around this
yeah,
time.
yeah, that film was. I had to watch it twice, which sucked.
Oof, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, because I had to watch it once for the podcast, and then my family decided they wanted to watch it. So I'm like, fine, I guess I'll take you guys to go watch it, and we all suffered. Like none of us liked it. I'm like,
I could at least did they at least like it?
no, they didn't, not at all.
At least you know that they have good taste, and they'll probably never drag you to a movie like that ever again.
I mean,
Hopefully.
we'll see. We shall see. So for me, for franchise film, for me, I kind of like picked a film that was like a continuation of a franchise back from like the 80s and the 70s. This is actually a franchise I'm not the biggest fan of. It's definitely a franchise I've been meaning to revisit. But this newest installment absolutely blew my mind in terms of like the filmmaking and how crazy and off the walls it is. And honestly, it's the type of film I want to make if I ever go in the film industry. I just want to make a film this absolutely nuts where like I hand it into a producer and they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to finance this. I'm like, yes, you are. And that's Mad Max Fury Road. Witness me, brothers. Man, this movie, it's it's jaw dropping, just like how great this film is, how well directed like the action is, with so many moving pieces going on. Because they've got like all types of practical effects, all types of like real car chases, but also like some really well hidden CGI. A lot of like when this film first came out, people praised it for it's 99% practical effects, and it's actually like it's more like 70% practical effects. But like when they do use CGI, they use it so well. It's the first film in the Mad Max franchise like made Max mad. Like he's like genuinely crazy in this film. And I really appreciated Tom Hardy's rendition of Max. And Charlize Theron steals the show. For one of my papers for when school ended, I wrote about this film and I wrote about Charlize Theron's character and how the film is basically just like about toppling the patriarchy. And how Morton Joe is like kind of like this patriarchal ruler who like who objectifies women and who keeps them as slaves and as breeders, and how like Charlize Theron's character is the one who like topples the patriarchy and replaces it with a matriarchy. And the one selling point for me with this film is like this is a film about toppling the patriarchy, but also has a guy with a guitar that shoots flames out of it. What's not to love?
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing you can't love about that, honestly. I've actually, ever since that movie came out, I've actually seen people online trying to recreate that. A couple of fails, but a couple of them actually pulled it off too. It's pretty creepy.
Oh yeah, man, Mad Max Fury Road. It's just like I can't stop saying good things about it. One thing I absolutely love is the soundtrack. It's a soundtrack I listen to this day. The score by Junkie XL is like absolutely incredible with like a great use of like orchestra and metal, and it gets your adrenaline pumping. It's great workout music.
It definitely is. It's not great driving music because you're gonna think that you are a part of the Mad Max chase. Don't do it. I do not recommend it.
I
But
live, I die, I live again.
that's not what happens, man. You just die. But yeah, no, Fury Road. That's one of my favorite movies of this past decade. Yeah, and that's another thing. I remember back when like the term incel first came out. It was actually surrounding this film because a lot of people were upset. Oh, why is it called Mad Max when Charlize Theron's Furiosa? She's the one that takes over everything. You SJWs try to silence us. It's like, dude, shut up. Just enjoy the film here. Essentially, you got a pretty long car chase, and it does so much with that it's just like it's mind blowing. Honestly, like you were saying, it's really really mind blowing.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's
but they
just
do it.
like there's so much to unpack with this film. Just like, and it's like it is like mainly about the action and like the crazy off the wall stunts and the practical effects and the explosions, and yet there's so much like layered like each shot in terms of like its visual storytelling. You could watch this film on silent and it would work 100%. And it's all of its themes about like our current government would still be prevalent. For me, like on the most recent rewatch, I rewatched it during the quarantine. And for me, like the one thing that stuck out to me is like Immortan Joe is basically Donald Trump. Where like they say in the film when Nix he says no Nux, that's his name. Nux says, "Oh, he's gonna save us from all this," and then one of the wives says, "Oh, but who do you think created this?" And it's the same thing with Trump, where he could have like prevented a lot of what happened in this country with the coronavirus, but yet he didn't, and now things have gotten like, progressively worse. And then people are like, "Oh, but Trump's gonna save us. Trump's gonna handle this so well." It's like, yeah, but he hasn't been handling it well. He's been handling it terribly. Like Trump is a Morton Joe, just a lot fatter and a lot less interesting.
Yeah, and less orange than pale, or less pale than orange. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about it that way. It's an interesting insight. Um, I guess you could apply that to like many of our governors and congresswomen and men that kind of just fumble at the ball with everything politically. But yeah, that's a deep insight there. I'd watch the film again with that in mind.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it has a lot to say about like the current government structures and like how it's like toppled them. And I really appreciate it. And like I said, there's a guy with a guitar that shoots flames. What's not to love?
The one thing too, speaking on that, that I would love, like if somebody, I don't know if they already did or not, but if somebody could pick up like, I guess, a comic series or some type of book series that really lays out the lore of Mad Max, because the film, it hints at it, never really goes into specifics of it, but it really is amazing. I mean, you got a bullet town or bullet farmer, and you have one town that just controls all this over here. It's like I really would like to see somebody like flesh that out. I know they had the game that came out a couple years back, but it wasn't really connected to the movies at all. But yeah, I would like to see somebody dive deeper into that lore, and maybe George Miller will in his next film. But I don't know, we'll see.
Well, he's planning on making a Furiosa prequel with the rumor
Yeah,
is that Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be the star of the film, which everybody freaked out about. But like Anya Taylor-Joy is a really great actress, so how about we give her a chance? Um, but
yeah.
yes.
Just in that Thoroughbreds movie, that was pretty good. It was her and I forget her name, Olivia Cook, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, she's a really great actress, so I'm down for that.
Without a doubt. So for our next pick, we decided to just go with like a very simplistic action film, something that you can turn on and it's just like you're just wowed by um, by the action, something more small scale, nothing like on the scale of like Mad Max or Star Wars. So Jalen, what would you pick for this?
Yeah, I chose Speed, even though that movie is kind of on a bigger scale. It is just all insane, high octane action film. Obviously, Keanu Reeves, everybody loves him. We were just talking about him last week. He's amazing. Not again, we're not saying he's the best actor of all time or anything, but his charisma and his dedication, it's really, really great to see.
Hey, listen,
Uh,
Keanu might not be the best actor of all time, but he just might be the best human of all time.
yeah, there you go, man. There you go. I mean, listen, if he, God forbid, was to have any type of rape accusations come out, I don't know what I would do with myself.
I don't know. Keanu's too respectable of a gentleman.
He's way too wholesome for that. But I don't know. Everybody said the same thing about Bill Cosby too.
Fair
But
enough.
but yeah, Speed. Essentially, it's a simple premise. Uh, a guy's on the bus. You slow it down, a bomb goes off, so he has to keep his speed up. Um, and it's a movie where it's like with a premise like that, you would think it's like, well, you have a lot to think about there because I mean, what about the traffic? What about the roads? How does that work out? But all the logistics of it, they actually do go into it. And a lot of it is pretty convenient, but the fact they addressed a lot of that stuff and they actually added into the action, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'll sit down and watch this. And, you're thinking you're getting a B fluff film, but you're getting essentially one of the best action films ever. It also has Sandra Bullock in there who plays the I guess she is the love interest, sort of, but she is more sassy and actually has a lot of great lines. Dennis Hopper's in there, of course, as the bad guy. But you got, just like I said, high octane, just all around fun action film. There's nothing really too like deep I could pull out from it. It's just kick back, have a beer, and watch some good action, and cheesy one-liners.
Exactly. Yeah, Speed is one of my all-time favorite films. Probably cracks like my top 20 or top 50. But yeah, it's just like it's very simplistic, and that's kind of like the joy of the film. It's very simple premise, and what works so well about it is like they direct the hell out of it. And because of that, it's such an entertaining watch, and it keeps you at the edge of your seat because you don't know what's going to happen next. It has a really brilliant premise, and then you have Keanu who just does all these crazy stunts, who's willing to put himself in harm's way, just like Tom Cruise, just not as like crazy for Scientology,
Yeah.
because Keanu's smarter than that.
Yep.
But yeah, like Speed, fantastic film. I even have a running joke with one of my friends where like I kind of like worship Keanu, just because like he's such a talented actor. It's just in terms of like his stunts and his charisma. And it's hard to not respect somebody like that.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, for mid-budget action film, I went with a foreign film, that when I first saw it, blew me away in terms of its action. I find his story to be very simplistic and his characters to be like kind of forced. But I can put all that to the side because of how off the walls crazy this action is. And I went with the first Raid. Um, Man, this movie's brutal. Like I recommended this movie to everybody after I saw it. My dad, my stepfather, just like everybody who I know who loves action and who loves martial arts, I recommended this movie to. Just like the way that all this is choreographed is absolutely incredible. And there's scenes, man, that like maybe go, oof, like it's hard to watch, but like it's at the same time I can't look away from it because of how impressive it is.
Mm.
That final fight with the two brothers fighting that one henchman where he's just like always like trying to show off, like he just like gets a kick out of the fight, he gets a kick out of the adrenaline, so he always loves the hand-to-hand combat. And the way they take him down, and then he's still fighting with like a piece of glass in his neck, and then like they finally kill him. It's so brutal, so violent, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Make me want to actually watch it right now. Maybe it's great.
Like there are just like so many great moves in there, and like the way it's directed all too. Big wide shots, long, big long wide shots. None of them, they don't really cut all that often. It's not like the quick cuts like you see in like a lot of American action films. Oh, and another one of my favorite moves. I can't. It's hard for me to like not talk about this film without not talking about like my favorite action parts. Is when the main character grabs a guy by the head and like he jumps back and slams his neck on the broken door. Man, that's brutal, and I love it. You guys are probably questioning my sanity right now. I promise you I'm not a violent person. I just like action movies.
You're on a list now, but I'll agree with you. It all looked really, really cool, very stylish. I would never attempt to do that in real life, though.
Oh, definitely not. But then again, you never know. Maybe someday I'll have to fight like Indonesian drug dealers, and I'm like, well, I saw the Raid, so this should be easy.
Yeah, why not? I mean, listen, gonna die anyways, so
No, I live, I die, I live again. Have you not learned this lesson?
how that works.
Um, But yeah, that's been our summer blockbuster list. These are films that are just like really entertaining, which is all you want during the summertime. A film that's like at least entertaining. Of course, it can be like well crafted and it can be like a fantastically made film. But summer blockbuster season is just a season where you sit down, you eat some popcorn, drink some soda or your favorite candy. For me, it's M&Ms, and you just kind of turn your brain off and have fun. You laugh. You're awed by the spectacle, and yeah.
And listen, I mean, if it's you look at last summer, I mean, you got a lot of great films that came out of it, but honestly, there was also a lot of stuff that wasn't that. You go in expecting something at the very least fun, but you're sitting in the theater like, yo, this is really boring. I have no emotion to pull out from it. So, listen, what we hope with this list is, like you said, we have something that you can just at least kick back and have fun with. So, check them out.
Yeah, and even I think in terms of like summer blockbusters too, you don't have to just look towards like comedies and action films. Like we mostly list off action films, but if you look at last summer, one of the biggest films was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And while it's not, there really isn't a whole lot of action until the end of the film, but for the most part, what it is, it's a laid back, fun type of film where you just like sit back and you're on this ride with these characters and you're just having fun with them, you know? And that's like the type of films you go to towards the summer movie season because this is a laid back, fun time. Everybody's going to the beach, everybody's going on picnics, they're going out with their friends. And that's the type of energy you're looking for from your films.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I know during the summertime, a lot of people go to the theaters just for the free air conditioning. And, if you get a good movie with it, that's an added bonus. So why not just have a good time?
Absolutely. And so that's been our summer blockbuster segment. And right now we're going to go into the films we've been watching over the week. Jalen, what have you been watching?
Well, honestly, everything I named on my list, that's pretty much all I've been watching. So I guess I'll talk about the new game that I just got this weekend. And I know you started playing it yourself, which is The Last of Us Part 2. Um, I'm not going to go into any spoilers at all because I haven't finished it myself. I'm about 23 hours into it.
And also keep in
Um,
mind, we're going to do an episode on this game too.
yep. Yeah, we're going to do a whole spoiler cast. We'll have two other people on the panel, and it should be a great discussion because from what I'm at so far, there's so much to talk about with this game, story-wise. It's pretty divisive right now. There's a lot of people that love it. There's a lot of people who aren't happy with decisions made in this game. For me, I fall into the camp where I'm loving it, but I can see where there's room for it to kind of fall off a bit. Um, I'll start with the gameplay. I think it's just completely refined from the first Last of Us. Ellie, she can go pro now, which is like, is that really a big of a deal? Yes, it is. It changes up so much. There's a dodge button now, so the melee encounters are just more intense and more visceral, and that adds into like how brutal this game is. I mean, it's a game that really speaks a lot on violence, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler cast when we do that. But it's a game that really says so much about that in that cycle of violence, where it really puts you up close into it, and you can see the facial expressions on Ellie and on the people that she's murdering throughout this game. It's like, yo, this is rough. But at the same time, and like you said, I don't know if it pulls into the sadistic side of me, but it's a lot of fun. The game, just having to map out your area and seeing enemy patterns and crafting weapons and throwables to distract them and take them out. All that, to me, it's a whole lot of fun. And the added part on that is that you have a great story with great character development. I will say at the point I'm at now, the pacing is pretty awkward. Um, well, yeah, like I said, I will talk about that later. But overall, The Last of Us Part 2, I'm more than happy with it. I feel like it's a game where you get your bang for your buck, which is something you can't really say a lot about games these days. A lot of them are released pretty unfinished, and they try to sell you on DLC for it after the fact. This game is like, no, you pay your $60, you get a 30-hour game here. It wraps up storylines and arcs and everything that you've been wanting to see for like 7 years at this point. And yeah, it's just overall fun time that I'm having with it so far. I'm upset that there's no multiplayer yet, but I'm patient. I could wait for it when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm currently playing through. I just started the game today. Just came in the mail for me, and so I played through a little bit of it. And from what I'm seeing so far, I like. I read the leaks just because like everybody was talking about it, and I think it is a bold and interesting direction to go in. I'm not going to say what it is in case you've been lucky enough to avoid it, but I'm interested in seeing where it goes. I think this is a case where the fans like expect things to go their way, but like, that's not. Hey, it's not their story they're telling. It's a storyteller's story. They have like a specific point they want to make. So I'm looking forward to seeing like how it turns out in the game and whether or not I'll like it, like actually seeing it in person. But from what I hear, I'm already thinking it's an interesting decision. Have you been watching or playing anything else?
Honestly, it was just that, and I started replaying Horizon Zero Dawn again, um, just before that Last of Us came out. And I know you said that you got a bit overwhelmed with it. We were talking about this a couple episodes ago. And actually, like replaying it now, I had platinum the game by the way when it first came out. So I guess I kind of exhausted everything there is to do in that game, but there was definitely that feeling of, yeah, I am kind of, there's a lot to do and having to start over. It's kind of a lot, but I really love the world. I love the story and the lore of it. Aloy, to me, is such an interesting character. Um, Too bad there's no secondary characters as interesting as her. they're all just kind of reactionary characters, but she really does carry the game, man. The gameplay overall, it's the combat is fun and engaging. The different weapon choices you have with that game, the bow and arrow, and you can change it to like a fire arrow. You have a slingshot that shoots like electric balls or freeze balls. You have a trip caster to take down these big machines. So much to go on with there, and um, I really can't wait to see what they do with the sequel for the PS5. All they really have to do is just fine tune animations and give us a new story with added parts of the map, and I'll be more than happy. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, I think it's one of those games where you look back on the PS4 generation, it's like, wow, Xbox is not touching the system whatsoever.
Not at all. Yeah, it's a game I have yet to finish. I bought it at a time where I was like really overwhelmed with schoolwork and stuff, and so I never got to like get deep into it. I just find it open world games that as of late have been really overwhelming for me because I've also have like so much going on.
Mm,
But from what I have played from this game, it's utterly fantastic. I love the concept from day one, ever since I saw the reveal trailer. I just like love the way the graphics looked and like everything looks fantastic. So I will finish it someday, hopefully before the sequel comes out. But yeah, so I guess from there I'll go into what I've been doing this week. I just finished reading Stephen King's book, The Outsider, which came out 2 years ago, and they turned it into an HBO show earlier this year. Which I've made it halfway through the show, and it's like really great, and so is the book. But just what Stephen King does so well in the book is that he really gets you into the mind of these characters, and it's like the way they think and like the way they process certain information. And he just really builds atmosphere so well, where like there's this really eerie atmosphere throughout the book, filled with like grief and dread, and it gets under your skin. And the show perfectly captures that atmosphere, especially with the way it's shot, the way it really just like lingers on shots. It doesn't really. It's like each shot is like paced out in a way where they just really hold on it for so long. It was like capture that really uneery feeling. Um, so yeah, like I said, only halfway through the show so far, but I recommend that, and I recommend reading the book first too. One thing I will say about the book is that it doesn't really stick the landing. It has a decent ending, but it is very underwhelming and anticlimactic, where they just like, oh, well, they just did that. Okay, I guess the story's done. Um, Definitely could have been a bit of more dramatic ending, I think. But overall, just like a really fantastic book. It shows that like Stephen King is an author who's been around since like the '70s, and he's still got it, you know.
mm,
And I'm looking forward to reading more Stephen King. I'm fairly new to his bibliography. I recently read The Shining book for the first time. I loved it. And I also read some of Carrie, which is also really great. I'm looking forward to like right now. Up next, I'm going to read Pet Cemetery after I finish another book I'm reading. Um, yeah, just all around pretty great.
yeah. This was one of his. You know what year this book came out?
It was 2018.
Right? Yeah, because if for those of you who don't know, I actually worked at a library, and I remember when it came out, people were actually lining up to actually pick this book up. A lot of people had put it on reserve, and people actually fighting over it. It's like, oh, I thought I reserved it. So all this to say, just to your point of all these years, and Stephen King still got it. I mean, his fan base obviously throughout the years had to have built up, but the fact that it's 2018 and 2020 now that people are lining up at the door to read his stuff, I mean, that's a whole achievement, whether the book is good or bad. But yeah, I'm interested in checking it out, and from what I heard, the show is pretty good too, so I'll check that out as well eventually.
Yeah, like I said, I'm halfway through the show, and they do make a lot of changes, but I think all the changes are for the better. Not saying that there's anything wrong with the first book. Like I said, the only thing that's wrong with it is the ending. And from what I hear, the ending of the show isn't all that better.
Mm.
But keep in mind, it's also produced by Richard Price, who did The Wire and The Night Of, which are both like police procedurals. And he's kind of like bringing that same aura to The Outsider, because it is, for the most part, like a mystery story or a police procedural. That's the way Stephen King wrote the book, and so like it really translates very well.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then I've also been I rewatched I finished my rewatch of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is a very hard trilogy to rewatch. Not because they're bad films, but they're actually fantastic. But they're long. I've been trying to rewatch these films for the past like 3 weeks. And like it's hard to like set time aside, even in quarantine. It's hard to set time aside and say, okay, I'm gonna sit down for 3 hours straight and watch one film.
Right.
I actually blew up your phone about this the other day. Just like raving about these films, but yeah, just like it's amazing what they did in the early 2000s. This is like a film that like pioneered CGI effects. But at the same time, had really great practical effects. I love the way the orcs look, especially compared to how they look in The Hobbit. The Hobbit orcs look disgusting, to say the least. They're not bad films, but they definitely overuse CGI. But just like the imagery in the film, just and like the way like it really captures like these fantastic images. And one thing I said to you in the text messages was like, this is kind of the end game of its day, where this was like the big event of the year, and there are moments where you're gonna cheer, where you're gonna cry, and this is just like something that like really emotionally grabs you. I'm shocked I didn't include this in like on our summer list because like this is a perfect summer blockbuster. Um, but it's just all around epic. Like the action's great. Even like the themes of like friendship and good versus evil. A lot of the things like people say about Lord of the Rings, like a lot of the reason they say they're not interested in checking it out is because like, oh, it's just like a very simplistic fantasy story. And while it did like lay the template for a lot of like other fantasy stories, it's not as simple as you think. It does like a lot of like interesting things within the fantasy genre, especially in terms of the way it ends, because it doesn't have like the most wholesome ending for the main character Frodo. He's gone through some stuff. Like he's traumatized, and that was like kind of mirrors how J.R.R. Tolkien was traumatized by World War One.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jalen, I know it's a series that you have yet to watch. And I know you said you're not a big fantasy guy. So maybe this will turn you around. Maybe this wouldn't. But like this was like, if you talk about the books, like these are the books like that pioneered the fantasy genre, and even did the same for film once they adapted it. Like if we didn't have Lord of the Rings, we wouldn't have Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely, even though I haven't seen it, I definitely can see the influences. And I mean, just throughout the years, seeing everybody rave about these films, it's always made me interested in checking them out at some point. And I'm at the age of 21 where it's like, dude, you still haven't seen them. I know, but like I said, I'm not a big fantasy guy, but just hearing you talk about it, it's like, yeah, I really should check these out sometime.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say these are like hard films to watch. I remember when I first watched them, I was like 13, and my grandmother has like, we sat down for like a couple days just to watch them because they are long. Like it's like 3 Endgames long, you know? And like Endgame itself is hard to sit on. Like imagine if like it was like all of like the MC movies are all 3 hours each, you know?
Jeez. Well, I mean, like from what you're saying, it sounds like it was worth it. So,
Oh, without a doubt.
well, look, I got HBO Max finally did its little free update thing for me, so I think I could finally check them out. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make you an interesting proposition. For the next 3 episodes, for your what you saw this week, watch one of each in the trilogy. We'll start off with Fellowship, The Two Towers, Return of the Ring, and take it slow. Even if you have to like break it up into days, because like I said, they are long films. I really want to see your thoughts on these films.
All right, and just know, like, if I hate them, you can't like not be my friend at that point.
I don't know. Well, you almost unfriended me because I wasn't the biggest fan of Incredibles 2. So I don't know.
Oh yeah. All right, bye, Alex. This podcast is canceled now.
Oh boy.
I forgot about that.
Well, you know what? You're no longer the Sam to my Frodo. Bam.
I don't get
Friendship
that.
ended.
I do not get that. But
Well, you
listen,
should.
I'll check. All right, I'll do that though. I'll watch a film a week. But knowing me, if I really do end up liking the first one, I'll probably just binge watch through all of them anyways. So I'll definitely get back to you on that. I am interested in checking them out though. They seem great.
Awesome. I did one great thing today. That was my good deed of the day.
I planned on checking them out anyways, but yeah, you can have credit for that. Sure.
And that's going to be the end of the podcast for today. Jalen, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you could follow me on Reddit at jmike127, or just follow me on God damn it, Letterboxd.
You can find me on Twitter as Jedi Master Alex, or you can follow me on Letterboxd as Alexander Zapeta. You can email us at thefilmschoolsnobs@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Instagram. Just look up the Film School Snobs. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one.
Later.